Digital. Digital is everywhere. But digital is not about technology, digital is about people. And everyone in the world now, they will be online, they will be connected using smartphones, tablets, laptop, whatever it is. How many people really use digital in its full potential? Well, the reality is that only a 0.01% of the population really master, really dominate the digital world. So I want to take you on a journey where I met some of the brightest minds in the digital world and in the business world, and I want to try to share with you some of the tips that I've learned and we have learned to improve your life and your business. Come with me.
If you have the right strategy, you can compress decades into days. Literally, you can save that time. But lots of people know the strategy, they know what to do. Some of your viewers right now may know they have their business or they have something they want to change in their life. They know what to do, but they're not doing it. It's because they're missing the right story. Right. Story is just my metaphor for all the beliefs that we have, all the expectations, all the rules about how life's supposed to be, how business is supposed to be. And when people don't, for example, work out, they have a story. They say, I have no time. Or the story is, oh, I've tried everything. The story keeps us from either finding the strategy or actually accessing it and using it effectively. The way you change people is you change their state. So your story about life changes when you change your state. Right. When you change your state, story, and your strategies, you can get a breakthrough.
So, this is your company, and this is the digital world, right? And the big question is, what are you gonna do when your company goes inside the digital ecosystem? What are you gonna do? How do you change? What will you do? And how will you adapt?
The Internet of Things also has the potential to really completely redefine a number of industries. Like, what if I had a connected thermometer at home, right? Okay. So that every time I took my child's temperature to see if they had a fever, that data was automatically made available to my doctor.
A lot of people and companies think digital is too complicated, and they're a little bit afraid. They feel like it's a sort of chess game. But you can take control. You can make the first move.
So here's the old way of doing business. This is called brand experience, a brand experience. And it sounds like this. I talk, you be quiet. That's a brand experience. Now, that's changed. We're in the age of social. And today it's a customer experience. And it sounds like this. I listen, I engage. And that's what brands are doing today. You see it on their social media channels. Now get ready. Here's the change. It's about to change one more time. The next phase is called a market experience. And this means that the companies have to help two customers connect to each other, to share or buy or trade their services.
We believe that global communications are here to stay, that social networks are here to stay, and immensely empowering, that machine intelligence is going to suffuse all of this and make it more and more powerful and easier to use. And that online video, both through our computers, our tablets, our mobile phones, is one of the most powerful, most emotionally engaging medium.
I find that most people, most clients, most human beings, most people in my organization, most people in the outside world, most people use data as a defense, as something they consume, as something that they want to report on what they already did. And I think you need to flip that and use the data to give you information and strategy and insight into what to do forward. Most people don't do that. They use the data as consumption, as a post game, instead of as the strategy for a pre-game.
Business is changed, yes, and I show you how. Very simple. This is the old way of doing business. Categories, that you can expect exactly what's coming out from your business, but this is the new way of doing business. Imagine this is social media. You really don't get it sometimes, but just because you don't have the right guidelines, if you know how to do it, it becomes everything more clear. And so you have to find a way of balancing these two words. It's not always easy, but you can find a way.
We are the medium. If we find it interesting in one way or another. Things only move because I receive something and I decide to send it along, and you receive it from me and you decide to send it. So thinking about it as the medium, this is the most important part of the internet, which this is from the very beginning, a social phenomenon.
If you have the right strategy and the right framework, you can pick up the right information, understand what is not for you, and say, okay, this is exactly what I need, and everything is much, much easier.
In the last year or so, you start hearing more about education, technology, and that cuts across all, from actually teaching students who are in school to help them learn better,
yep,
to people who never went to school, to people who are older and continuing education.
Montemagno, Montezuma. Montemagno, Montezuma, right? I know who I am, and they know who they are. But does your company know who they are?
The power is actually shifting from the boardroom to the living room. And what I mean by that is that consumers now have access to their friends' opinions, they can research online, they can use apps to scan barcodes and figure out prices. So consumers can be much more involved in their purchase decision. So in the past, brands and marketers were able to push products out. Now it's really more of a pull mentality, and the living room, or the person sitting at home, has more power.
If you are a company that knows who you are, the company actually, the image you will have outside for your customers, the consumers, will actually have an impact.
Look at this, for example. Some people could just see an old burned pier. Other people see an opportunity to build maybe something new, something different. And so the lesson here is that probably is good to be the only person who sees the world in a different way.
If you happen to be the one person that thinks something's right and no one else thinks it can work, then you have a shot, because perception is not reality. If it started with perception and reality are the same from the financial community, there's no upside. If it starts with perception is different than reality and the company grows into reality, if you were the only one thinking that, you're going to do really well.
Positioning your business is so important. Finding the right balance in this digital world, positioning.
You have to reverse engineer your strategy and what platforms you use based on what you're selling. If I'm selling something that's female driven, I'm using Pinterest. If I need to sell something cool, I'm using Tumblr. If I need to sell something to moms, I'm using Facebook. So you've got to really understand where to tell your story based on who your target audience is.
Here's one of the key of businesses. The bigger the wave, the easier it is to be a success. So I think one of the keys that I've always looked for is find big opportunities that are offline that are going to move online, that are in that transition period. Because if you can identify that, you only have to be kind of right with your idea or your market size or whatever to have a big wave compel you.
Some companies have fantastic creative ideas, others just don't. But what's the secret of creativity?
You have chosen thought leaders from many different fields. That's the secret to creativity. That is the secret to unleashing innovation and creative ideas. You don't want to hear from people just in your field. You want to apply ideas from completely different fields.
Absolutely.
The best innovations in the Apple Store were copied from brands and companies completely outside of consumer electronics.
I love whiteboards, and I don't care how big they make a computer screen or a tablet. There's nothing as great as a wall, a massive wall with your ideas where 2 to 20 people can stand around it and look at things, or even if you're doing it alone, just to kind of look at things. And even if it was something this size, I go to a coffee shop or something with a pen, there's something, and there's evidence, and there's some research about this, especially in Japan, about the brain and writing something with this, this utensil, a pencil or a pen, rather than typing things in. Yeah. There's something going on with the creative process when maybe this is deep in our DNA or in our brainstem, you know, before we had pens, we would use our finger or a stick. But there's something going on there. I think it just opens up the creative process.
How do you find your niche?
The first thing that you have to think about is, what are the most common questions that you get on your blog or on your show? Via email, when people stop you in the street, you know, when people comment on Facebook and, you know, tweet on Twitter, whatever the platforms are, when people are asking you a question, what are they asking? Because often the most obvious thing is right under your nose.
I found my niche by saying, I have a problem here. Who out there can solve it? And I knew that guys like Seth Godin, who I admired, whose book I read for a long time, people like the founder of Sun Microsystems, Wikipedia, they weren't just going to talk to me. But I thought if I start doing these as interviews, they would talk to other people through me. And that's how the whole thing started.
You now, whether you're a 2-person company or a 200,000-person company, you can have the same kinds of tools and the same ease of use. And it really is a fundamental shift where you're seeing historically companies like SAP and Oracle come in and, you know, sell into the CIO office from the top down. And now what you're seeing is the exact opposite.
I love it. I think that there is a frequent misconception in startups that what you do in the beginning is what you do at scale. And when you dig deeper into the stories of some of the world's best startups, like eBay, for example, you see that that's not the case. When eBay first launched, they literally sent people with cameras to take pictures of an item. So if you listed a great pair of shoes, it wasn't necessarily common yet for people to have their own camera to take a picture to upload it. So they would actually send someone to your house to take a picture of your shoes and put it online so you could sell them on eBay. That doesn't scale, but you don't need to do that forever. When we did our first 5, I personally went into the companies, made them feel very comfortable, created the profile for them. The companies were floored. When we did the next 25, it was someone from our team who we had hired. Now it's a team of freelancers. We actually modeled it after the Airbnb model, where we connect with great local photographers and dispatch them to create the profile.
In 2013, still content is king. But what kind of content?
First of all, on the marketing side, you have kind of a lack of new platforms that have come along in the last 3 years or so. It's been pretty stable. Twitter and Facebook are kind of now entrenched, and Google has not really made a huge dent into either one of those platforms. And then you have obviously Tumblr and some others. And so I think there's a lack of shiny objects that marketers can turn around and try to sell. That's one. 2 is you have increased confidence by marketers in the ability to tell their story their own way. So they've been very successful on social the last 4 or 5 years. They have the infrastructure now and the confidence to go out and tell their story. And then 3, I think that there's a huge shift in the economics of media that all of a sudden is creating new avenues for content, not just to appear on our properties, but to appear on some of the most trafficked sites on the web. And I think that's a huge shift.
Packaging information in a way that sticks inside the mind of your customer is fundamental, like an artist.
One way. Human beings. You and me. The only way you can scale, making your customers happy is by delivering great work and by scaling human beings. More effort, more caring, more giving a crap, more interaction, more hustle, more, but more human stuff, not automation.
All right, so there is no chance to use any...
There's no scaling. You know where the scaling comes in? More human beings. That's scaling.
Essentially is becoming clearer is what makes information possible to penetrate our thick skull. And it turns out that, if you package information in certain ways, it's much easier for us to both understand and remember it. If you can tell a story and actually put it out in a visual spatial format, then people are more likely to both understand and remember what you have to say.
Well, go mobile if your application justifies it.
Okay.
Don't go mobile for the sake of going mobile, because if you go mobile and nobody's using your product, then you've wasted a lot of effort.
Okay.
So make sure you have a valid case for people to use your application on their phones. And that doesn't apply to everyone. I could think of B2B software that just will never make it to a mobile app because it's complex. It has so many features that creating a simple experience on a mobile phone doesn't make sense.
You have to find new ways to skyrocket your business.
But two things happen. One, it's harder than ever to get picked because more and more people are saying, pick me, pick me, pick me. And two, the pickers have less power than they used to.
Right.
It used to be that if you were on the cover of a magazine, everyone, in quotations, would see it. It used to be that if you got mentioned on a TV show, everyone would watch. But the number of people who watch The Tonight Show is a quarter or less who used to watch The Tonight Show. So getting picked isn't worth as much anymore anyway. So there's an alternative. And the alternative is if you are frustrated because you're not getting picked, instead of whining about the fact that you're not getting picked, the alternative is to build a business that does not require gatekeepers to pick you. So you write a book, you print it as a PDF, you email it to 50 people who like you and trust you. And if you don't have 50 people who like you and trust you, start over, right? But you do. Now, if those 50 people who like you and trust you look at the PDF and say, this is great, and they email it to 50 people who like them and trust them, now you've reached 2,500 people. If it happens one more time, you've reached over 100,000 people who have read what you wrote. Now, if 100,000 people read what you wrote in just 5 days for free, will you be better off or worse off?
Yeah. Simple tip. If you want people to notice your business, just stop doing this and start doing this.
The only way to break through that, some people do it by spending so much money and creating crazy ads that make you pay attention because they're so funny or bizarre or raw. But a lot of those ads, you don't buy their product. You laugh.
Yeah.
You know the company, but you don't buy their product.
Right.
Because it's not necessarily bringing you in. The other way a small business can do it is you've got to figure an innovation that meets a need that's missing. Well, the best marketing of all is having a product that meets people's needs so well that the word of mouth is off the charts. If you make your mentality of marketing what I call VAM, V-A-M, value-added marketing, where instead of trying to compete for eyeballs, you go find out who that client is and you find a way to meet their needs and you do things for them that really meet their needs. I don't care if it's educate them, provide them an insight, something that gives them more convenience. The actual marketing itself does that for people. And then they begin to understand you, recognize you, like you, trust you, and want to do business with you. And that's the way to do it today.
I am a marketing person, but I am a product-driven marketing person. So I think the start of all great evangelism, all great, brands is a great product. And so, I've tried to evangelize people with crap, and I've tried to evangelize people with great stuff, and it is a lot easier to evangelize people with great stuff. So, to me, 80% of the action is creating great stuff. And lots of people say, yeah, I created great stuff and nobody bought it. Well, you know what? I would debate that it's great stuff.
Okay.
So the key is to create great stuff. And if you create it, they will come. I swear to God.
When you send an email to your customers or potential customers, there is a barrier between you and them, and it's like this gate. Try to figure out that. And if you have the right strategy, if you have the right key, you can start a conversation with them, and you can be sure that more customers or potential customers will open your next email.
I think the draft, like the actual text of the email, is probably the most important, followed by the subject line. I think sender can matter, and I mean, certainly, we definitely found that emails from Barack Obama did much, much better than emails from some random, person on the campaign. I mean, I work in politics, so I don't know that every one of these tips would apply, but certainly we found that, sort of shorter and less formal subject lines worked better for us. Not always, not 100% of the time, but, in general, I mean, our best subject line overall was, hey, and so we had emails from the president, and we would test out all sorts of subject lines, and just
what was the
subject line, hey.
What's the right price for your product or service, and how do you sell online?
You want to be at the premium end of your market.
Okay.
Premium end of your niche. So if you're in, let's say, the fitness niche, that's very different than the business niche, and that's very different than this niche. So you have to do a little research to see what's out there. The more premium you can go, right, the more high-quality customers you're going to get in, and the less you have to sell for it to be very successful.
Free money, or an easy way to do money, also in the digital world doesn't exist. But there are so many options that you have to monetize your knowledge, your product, your service, or your company, that is just up to you.
If you don't have any traffic, you're not going to make any money by marketing. But other factors that make a difference are things like the kind of products you're talking about, and how much a source of information your community views your site. So forums, for example, tend to convert much higher per user because people go to forums specifically to research and get recommendations on products they should buy. And so they tend to convert at a higher rate than traditional blogs and other editorial sites.
I've been lucky in my career that I built 4 companies that got to be worth over 250 million. And I co-founded another one that got to be worth over $1 billion. And when I look at the odds of doing this, and you say, what's the formula, right? But I don't have a formula. Okay. That's the problem. I mean,
that's good.
It surprises me every day. That's the thing, that it surprises me. When I look around, I only see problems, and yet this is supposed to be success, right? Success. And success. So success must be like one of those paintings that when you look from very close, all you see is failure, but when you look from far away, you see success. I don't know.
Digital is a fantastic opportunity. That's all it is. What are you going to do now?